Lies, used to promote the NIV. I hear you use the New International Version of the Bible.
Yes. And don't tell me you are one of those King James only people. There is nothing wrong with the NIV besides. God promised he would preserve his words.
I don't want to offend you. God's truly preserved words are in the King James.
What are you talking about? The NIV just updates the archaic words and makes it easier to understand. Nothing is really changed.
Friend, the NIV denies the deity of Jesus Christ, the virgin birth, glorifies Satan, openly lies, removes 22 complete verses, and 64,576 words. Just for sake of argument, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 12, says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, who didst weaken the nations?" But in the NIV, it replaces Lucifer with morning star. But Revelation 22 reveals to us that Jesus is the bright morning star. This is utter perversion and blasphemy.
Stop attacking the NIV. I grew up with it. You just sound like a church splitter.
I know. But when we are introduced to something for the first time, we may at first think it sounds good, but that doesn't make it right. And no. The only church that a believer in the perfect Bible could possibly split would have to be one that didn't believe that the Bible was perfect. Sometimes false accusations are based on misunderstandings. Sometimes they are based upon utter and complete falsehood. The fallacy that people believing in the perfect Bible are church splitters is unfortunately based entirely and maliciously on falsehood. Sadly, there are many Christians who have been through the traumatizing experience of a church split. It would be erroneous to pretend that every church split was caused by someone believing that the King James Bible was perfect. Churches split over everything from money issues to the question of what color to paint the new auditorium. The fact of the matter is that Christians sadly lack the grace found in Romans 14 and Luke 17, verse 1 to 5. It has nothing to do with the King James Bible. To try to claim that it does is to be a great deal less than honest.
Well, the NIV is easier to read and understand.
That's not true. According to a Flesch Kincaid grade-level research study, the King James Bible is by far the easiest. Out of 26 different categories, the King James graded easier in a whopping 23. In selected analysis, the KJV average grade level was 5.8, the NIV was 8.4. The NIV may seem easier to read, but not easier to understand.
Come on. Older and more reliable manuscripts have been discovered since the King James Bible.
It is true that they were older, but that doesn't mean they are better. Dr. Sam Jep writes, quote, "The fact is that the King James translators had all of the readings available to them that modern critics have available to them today," end of quote. And furthermore, it is a well-documented fact that 90 to 95% of all readings agree with the King James Bible. The fact is, the modern version manuscripts originated out of Alexandria, Egypt, in 350 AD. They were using all the original manuscripts from the books the apostles already wrote, but they were edited by a group of folks called the Alexandrians, who were a cult like Jehovah's Witnesses, who didn't believe in a lot of Christian things, and so they made their own copy of the Bible. If you read the Bible, you can see it really gives a negative view of anything that relates to, or comes out of Egypt. So, basically, you can't trust even a book that comes out of Egypt, if the Bible reflects on Egypt as bad.
Still, I believe the NIV is more accurate. Besides, you don't even speak Greek or Hebrew.
Friend, the KJV is a literal word-for-word translation. When the translators had to add words for sentence structure, they are in italics. The NIV uses dynamic equivalence. Rather than a word-for-word translation, they add, change, and subtract to make the verse say what they thought it should. The preface to the NIV even says, they have striven for more than a word-for-word translation. These are the simple facts. The NIV contains over 64,000 less words than the KJV. Over 90% of the existing manuscripts agree with the KJV. In some cases 99% agree, and the 1% minority text was taken over the majority text. And other than that, Hosea chapter 11 verse 12, in the King James, says, Judah yet ruleth with God. The NIV says, in the same verse, Judah is unruly against God. Would you say that is saying the same thing? Like they say, things that are different are not the same. Exclusively, the word hell occurs 31 times in the Old Testament in the King James Bible. In the Old Testament of the modern versions, do you know how many times it appears? 0. A certain verse that really attracts my attention, because I speak on creation all the time, Ephesians 3:9 says, "And to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the world hath been hid in God, who created all things by Jesus Christ." But the Alexandrians changed it to say, "which for ages past was kept hidden in God who created all things, by nobody." They didn't want to offend people, just for money. Nearly all the new Bible versions have changed it to say, ages, 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 and they leave off Jesus, except for the New King James they left Jesus in there, but they still call it ages past. Friend, I'm not saying this as a protest, I'm saying this as a warning for you.
Very interesting. You Christian apologetics really give some reasonable answers for many of the Christians' frequently asked questions. I will see you later, and I hope that we can talk again.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad you are satisfied. For more Christian apologetics, go either to drdino.com or answersingenesis.com.